It's that time of the week again where we bring you the Game Changers podcast brought to you by Zim Papers, a sports hub. We are part of the largest diversified media group in Zimbabwe. Talking about the Sunday Mail, the Herald, Star FM, H Metro, Capital, Diamond FM, Platinum FM, ZTM Prime. It is a bevy of media houses, and I've brought out the big guns today as we give you the latest episode on a different time slot. We decided to bring it earlier on a Friday afternoon. You might drink in peace. And of course, on the Game Changers podcast, I'm joined by award-winning journalist Langton Anyakwenda, a regular on the show. How say week or Lengas?
No, it was quite hectic. Shagwanda Shaitika. Mighty Warriors preparing for Kosafa Cup. Capes United going to Malawi for Dynamos also in Wange for pre-season camp. Keep chicken in also in Kariba. A lot is happening.
So much. I heard Chawanda for things are happening.
Chawanda stadium to be commissioned soon. I think in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, exciting
times, yeah.
And of course, we've got a super sub coming in town. I'm telling out here today. I'm going to
Super sub.
Are you ready for Game Changers?
Yeah, because the people's favorite Jono, I know the no good, but the try to why do end up with Dynamo Sugazoga? Oh, okay.
But anyway, we are live across our different social media platforms. So your comments, contributions are welcome. I want to engage with you guys as we go throughout the show. And I think as we build up, I think it's about just a little over 2 weeks before we have the Castle Challenge Cup. That's the official precursor to the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League. It's going to be last season's league champions, Scotland, taking on Dynamos. But this weekend, it is an early battle of Zimbabwe that will be taking place at Baba Fields. It is part of the Gyros GD Cup. Dynamos and Highlanders will be facing off in that friendly match at Baba Fields. That's this Sunday. And obviously, last season we were spoiled. I think it was the first game. Was it the first or second game of the season? Battle of Zimbabwe. Dynamos Highlanders.
The previous season.
Very, very early. But this one, it's a friendly match. Dynamos Highlanders. We haven't really heard much from Benjani and his signings. We haven't really heard much from Genesis Mangombe. So for a lot of us as football stakeholders, journalists, this will be our first look, Lengas, at both Dynamos and Highlanders on Sunday. How much do you think these guys are going to be taking this game serious?
Yeah, obviously, going by tradition, whenever Dynamos and Highlanders clash, whether BF or Kulfaro or Kupi or in Mars or Pluto, whether it's a friendly match or it's a cup game, it's a league game, expect fireworks. And also it's an early opportunity for us to gauge direction to big teams. Remember, Dynamos lost quite a number of players, including Jalai, the captain, to Durban City in South Africa. Highlanders also lost quite a number of players. They have a new coach. Dynamos also have a new coach. They've been in camp in Wange. So it's a chance for us to gauge my new signings. Witness how can they handle pressure? Dynamos, especially BF. It's good for them. Yeah.
Mungu Dynamos have been in Wange. We've been getting drips and drabs in terms of what they're doing. But I think over the last week, they have unveiled quite a few players from Perfect Chikwendo amongst them. I think Anotida Guajizo.
Moses Demera.
What have you made of these signings that Dembare have unveiled so far, given the precarious position they found themselves last season, fighting relegation? Calvin Kayendo helping them survive that. They lost their captain.
I think with Dynamos, it's not only about talent. It also has to do with whether my players are on our side or they've got the ability to be able to play for Dynamos. There's a huge difference there. We've seen it over the years, Dynamo signing players that are considered to be very good in terms of maybe my academies that they have been developed, in terms of Mageto, Koanova. But once they wear that blue and white, it becomes something totally different. Do they have the heart to be able to play before the Vietnam stand? So from the signings that Dynamos have so far unveiled, what's very interesting for me is some of the interesting names that have come up, in particular, Moses Demera. He's a good player. I think it's now or never. He has to show up. And if he can show up in Dynamo's colors and be able to score goals, just imagine if he can score 18, 20 goals, I think the Vietnam stand will be singing his name by the time we go end of the season.
Demera, I mean, always great potential, but he plays in glimpses. He gives him moments. I think he plays in moments. I think Dimbare now, obviously, they're outside of the likes of maybe Anasha Dregnawa. They're a bit short in terms of players with experience playing in the top flight, and then with the pedigree and the personality to be able to step up. Because I'm sure for Ana Guatizo, Ana Shawe, and even Ana Collins Mjuru, it's an honor to play for Dynamos. But we should not tangira manje. We start about Dynamos first game and I go once in BF actually even out to prove our point. How much pressure will be on the likes of Demera as the players that have the experience and have played in at such a high stage before?
Yeah, I think games like these ones, we are Weekend Islanders Dynamos, they can do two things to a player. Either no builder or no paradza chose. It depends on how you handle yourself from Swatch Baba Field. Obvious ground. We are expecting crowd chawia. Saga, I think if you go back in history, there are so many players who have announced their arrival using these kind of matches. You are my big games, you are my big Zimbabwe. So I'm thinking with the likes of Ana Witness Shave, who was promising last year Triangle, this is his opportunity now to showcase his talent on a bigger stage. Even Moses Demera, yes, he's getting to the other side of 30, but he has been a consistent goal scorer. Double figures at PC, double figures in Gezi Platinum. Only last season I got like 6-7 goals, but he's a consistent striker. Also a chance for him now to shine, like Muko is saying, to finally blossom, like what Machope did. Against late blossoming, he's got a chance. They have to show that. Then also the likes of Ana Colin Mujuru and Anutida Ishe Guatizo, they were playing for Yada Stars. Yada Stars were relegated. So one would think that Dynamos can relegate Yada, but Dynamos gives you a chance to revive also your career. If you look back at Denver Mkamba and Devon Chafa, Dynamos, they were known by Tabla Kiglon. But look what Dynamos did to Denver.
So from what I'm getting, Mugo from Langton, because playing for Dynamos can be a stage.
It's a big stage. It's a big stage. And Manondo is one of those players that have been...
Yeah, they're still negotiating.
You know, when you go back to 2010, I remember Lloyd Mtasa was bringing his kick loan going into the 2011 season. There were the likes of Devon Chafa, Den Vamkamba, Thomas Magorimbo, Gift Bello. You can mention them. If you had seen them playing for Kiglon, they were amazing. A lot of people were surprised when they saw them then playing for Dynamos. But one of those names that did not join Dynamos was William Manondo, and it still remains a mystery. He was supposed to have announced himself alongside Bello, alongside Thomas Magorimbo, alongside Devon Chafa, but he didn't join Dynamos. So it's been what? It's been 14, 15 years later, he finally gets the chance to wear the blue and white he should have worn 15 years ago.
But is he still
is he going to make amends? I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah, that's the biggest question. Is he the same? Yeah, of course, about 3 seasons ago, I got top goal scorer at Cape United. That was 2023. There about 2022. I got top goal scorer at Cape United. It's like 4 years ago. Last season he was quiet ku Simba Bora. But Dynamos being Dynamos, chaunga chikasimuka Vietnam, ukapuwa power, sometimes unasimuka.
But manje warukutangira waruku BF, and let's talk about Baba Fields, Emma Gumeni, Highlanders, in terms of the culture, the passion. We haven't really heard much from them outside of my signings in the Highlanders. But the most notable thing that has come out of Bulawayo, especially when we're looking at Boso, has been that whole drama around Benjani. And Benjani coming in, replacing Tato Senong. That sort of acted as a distraction at one stage for Highlanders. But how much do you think of Benjani understanding the concerns that were raised around his appointment and knowing where Highlanders are right now in terms of being on sort of a rebuild and then facing a rival historically, but that are also trying to rebuild, how much would you be thinking, you know what, I need to hit that ground running against Dynamos?
I think when it comes to Highlanders facing Dynamos, it's less about the coach. It's less about all the off-field battles, stories. It becomes a players' game. So it will be interesting which players are going to really turn up for Highlanders. I understand Silas Songani at one time, maybe 2 weeks ago, was training with Highlanders. I don't know what the situation is like. I'm sure Kurira is going to be able to actually tell us what the situation is like. But they've also unveiled quite a number of exciting new faces, new players that I think can actually...
It's the same
because it's that club where an unknown player will actually be able to announce himself. That's Highlanders for you. And we expect exactly
and do you think
that.
maybe Benjani is the right kind of mentor to be able to just inspire confidence in these youngsters? Because as much as we're talking about the challenge for the Dynamos players making their debut in Baba Fields, there's also a different pressure that comes from wearing that black and white and then having to go and represent a Bosa side where, despite whoever they signed, despite who is the coach, you know, that's the way to end. There's always going to be an expectation, especially against Dynamo. So I want to pass out friendly. I want to pass out Dynamos GDG.
This
is Dynamos. We have to beat Dynamos at all costs. Yeah, I think it's a sign of changing times. Because just as a back in history, yes, Dynamos Cape Islanders, they used to attract my big names. Kutukanetsa kulangisha Steve, kukanetsa kumangula, you would end up with Dynamos.
Boss,
if you look at Dynamos, for example, pana issue sponsorship deal yesakunda, pana issue kuti the funds have not been availed, pana issue when the budget was hazy. Obviously, with that scenario, you can then go for the best players that memchida. Usually, you settle for unheralded players, unknown players, when you cheap, when you suit your budget. Same goes for Islanders. Although Islanders over the years they've promoted juniors from their Boso 90. But the truth being told, these big three teams, these giants, no longer have that pulling power. You put my players and my big teams here.
All right, now, as we always do, we're going to join our colleague, Innocent Karira. He is based in the city of Kings. He's been on the ground throughout the week, keeping tabs on Highlanders as they build up to the Gyros Giri Cup. That will be in his own backyard. So, Innocent, we expect him to also give us an update after the game in terms of how that goes. But, Innocent, the Giri Cup is coming through on Sunday. It's a big one. Highlanders, Dynamos. How have things been in terms of the preparations, particularly from a Highlanders perspective?
Generally, it has been quite an exciting atmosphere during the course of this week. You would think maybe this is not just a charity cup. Given the atmosphere that is there, people are looking forward to this game. They want to see what Benjani brings to the table. They want to see, from the Dynamo side, they want to see what Mangombe has been building. But generally, I think this definitely will not be taken as a friendly match, especially given the atmosphere that the fans have been creating. Both coaches might be saying they are taking it as a charity shield. I'm sure that is what they will be saying. But for the fans, I don't think they will be taking it as such, and they are giving it all the seriousness that you would think it's a league game or a serious cup competition. Highlanders have also been keeping their cards close to their chest. Highlanders are a club that usually give their press conferences where just before any other game, but for this one, they've seemed to shy away from having one, and they've been giving all sorts of some, I can say, excuses to have chats with Benjani. Maybe they are protecting him. I don't know what they are trying to do. Maybe it's a strategy, but that again, I think it shows you the pressure that is coming with this game, because surely they should have maybe allowed the press maybe to have a chat with Benjani going into this game, but that is something that has not happened. And then in terms of the players, Highlanders are likely not to have Mvelokoza and Shepard Mhlanga, who is a new signing. Mvelokoza is battling a head injury. Not sure if he would have recovered by that time, while also Shepard Mhlanga is also reportedly having a knee injury, so he might not feature, and he's one of the players that were signed by Highlanders this season, and people maybe would have been expecting to see him. But there's also the likes of Renzo Mpavari, and then the much anticipated player, people that want to see on that field of play, obviously Mongameli Chuma is one brilliant player, and I'm sure he's going to deliver. He's coming in from Wange. Those are the players that are the new players that are likely to feature there for Highlanders. Not quite true about the situation with Lawrence Mhlanga and the likes of Kudakwashe Mahachi, because these ones have not signed yet. But let's wait and see, because I understand by the end of their training session this evening, they will have made a decision on who gets into the camp and who is out of this camp.
So Innocent there, just giving us an update from Bulawayo. You can tell he's clearly disappointed. He didn't get a chance to talk to Benjani and build up. But everybody, I think that's one of the big subplots from this particular matchup, the Benjani factor. We cannot ignore that. Everybody who wants to, because we saw him briefly when he had that stint as the Ngezi Platinum Stars head coach. I think it's just about 11, 12 games that he took charge of. So after all the noise and the money that was spent on him, there's a lot of noise. Even the journalists want to piss off him. But what did you make of some of the signings that Innocent talked about, and the players that might be missing for Boso as they face off with Highlanders?
I think this youngster, 24-year-old Mongameli Chuma from Wange, I've been reading quite a lot about him. He looks, although 24, I don't know if he's too promising or out to deliver. But I'm sure we're expecting a lot from Mongameli Chuma. Also, they've signed an 18-year-old, Roy Yamono from Bikita Minerals. Also, I spoke to some coaches, highly rated youngster. So I think with under Benjani, because if you look at Benjani back at Ngezi 2022, when he was appointed, mostly the other introducer, some of the youngsters who ended up...
So he believes in youth.
In youth, yeah. And Dominic Bendura, and Amurasiranwa, Leslie Kashtigu, and stuff like that. One way under Benjan, and they blossomed. Even Pagas Wayenda, he had created a platform for them, an opportunity for them. So I think with youngsters, that's why we're going to even Matiuza, Nakuda Kwashema Hachi, maybe Nana Silas Songana Rudrega. I'm sure Benjani is skeptical about signing my old aged players.
Unfortunately, I'm going to but I mean, it's when you different players, a different coach, different team, but in terms of the approach to the season, it mirrors Dynamo's rebuild, going for unknown players, unheralded players, just a handful of maybe senior players lurking around, hoping to just provide that experience. And I mean, as a journalist, or maybe even as a fan, whichever you prefer to answer as, does that take away from the interest in the game when you're building up to it and you're like, hey, like Lena says, we're reading about Chuma, we're learning about these players. So usually we say, but likely Innocent seems to have an insight, especially in terms of Chuma, and there seems to be genuine excitement coming out of Bulawayo around some of these young players.
I think we have seen it every season. Dynamos Highlanders, they're always building. I don't think there's a new story getting into any new season. So
is that why they've struggled? Because they're always building.
Last year, I don't think that's exactly the reason why they struggled. It had to do, especially when it comes to Dynamos, it had to do with the finances. They were not financially stable at all. I think it's the worst kept secret. And this year, it looks like they've got their things in order. And whenever Dynamos are just a little bit stable financially, you find it so difficult to play against them. You go back to the last time they won those four titles from 2011 to 2014. They were being backed by Benge BC. I remember during that time the players they were actually receiving salaries straight into their accounts, and everything was just flowing. And there were new players that came in 2011, and Dynamos were suddenly a giant. Of course, Lloyd Mtasa struggled. Pasua took over, took advantage of the foundations that had already been laid, and that was the Dynamos for you that won 4 consecutive titles. After that, of course, there were other factors, but just last year, it had to do more with the finances. They couldn't get the right coach. They couldn't get the right players. Can you imagine? They were actually conducting trials. That's unheard of. And for big teams like that.
For Boso now, when you look at last season and the struggles they had and why they're on a rebuild, it looked like when they brought in Peter de Jong, it looked like they were stable, but then things again have gone haywire in the off season. A lot of change, especially in the backroom stuff.
I think for Highlanders, to be honest, there was no need to actually fire Kaindo middle of the season. In the middle of the season, even if you have said no, we cannot go ahead with Kelvin Kaindo, they could have waited until the end of the season. I don't even think they were going to fight relegation. They were actually going to be part of the top 6, if not top 7. It was so clear. But then they decided, maybe they underestimated the competitiveness of the league last season and thought they would just change a coach and then go on, life goes on like that. It was so competitive. It just like the season that we're getting into. If you make a silly decision middle of the season, you're probably going to fight relegation. There are no two ways about it.
Kelvin kind of obviously sacked. Just to take us back to that and maybe the decision making at Highlanders. You know, some of the decisions they've made, dating back to even Baltimore Brito and how he left the club, and that sort of handicapped them as well because they had a transfer ban. People tend to forget that in the build-up to the start of last season. Kaindo comes in. Do you think maybe when you look at Kaindo also, he was a victim of his near success back in 2012? That, when he came back, they thought, now this time around, the second coming, Shaita, and then... maybe it wasn't realistic considering the investment. Was it?
Mr. Tich, living in the past sometimes is very dangerous. Sometimes an Islanders, yes, they are traditional giants, football powerhouses. But if you look, it's a fact the Islanders last won the league title 20 years ago. But they are no longer managing their expectations. But for a team that has not won a league title in the last 20 years, but on the ground, look, ukatasa energy, kuna Scotland, kuna Hard Rock, kuna Moors, Chicken Inn, FC Platinum, Ngezi Platinum, Simba, Bora, stable teams that are pushing my big three to the periphery. Save for Capes, they are financially stable. But Dynamos Islanders, in recent seasons, they've been pushed back. Yes, but my fans they still think we are Islanders, we have to win. Even my executive members, some of them are ill-informed. They think it's Islanders we have to win. That's why I used to fire Kaindo mid-season. But if you go back to 2013, like Mogo is saying, 2012, 2011, remember Dynamos and Islanders were neck on neck 3 consecutive seasons. I think 2011 they were 2012. They had the same number of points, only separated by goal difference. 2013, the same case. But after that, Panos of Wana, Bengue, BC, Pantona financial problems, Unama teams, so I think it's about managing your expectations and also laying a foundation and also allowing the project to grow. Then most of expect results.
Mugu, I'm going to put this to you, be a bit mischievous, actually, and say, obviously, Benjani, he wasn't the choice here, the executive initially, or even wasn't a favorite of the fans in terms of Munakaon's going to benefit. So in this regard, does it mean that he's safe, he has more time, because because he a benefactor, because so now Benjani, does he have more leeway to sort of work because because they need the support here, your benefactor.
You are privileged to have such good background, but as it stands, Benjani Mwaruwaru, the coach were Highlanders executive. Not to a benefactor, because they were just conditions that were. It was not a decision that they were forced to make. But maybe you are giving us a very good background. Thank you so much for the background. Well, if results don't come their way, I don't think you're going to point at the benefactor. You're going to point at the Highlanders executive.
No, it wasn't Rupan. It didn't do good. Nenya Guti Benjamin. But I'm not going to go this rashness that so Brito gets sick, that's so Kaindo gets sick, that's so Dijon gets sick. I'm not going to that body.
Yeah, I think Benjani's case, like Mugu is saying,
But
background.
but
Benjani's case,
vakapuwa Benjani akatopuwa ma targets.
yeah.
After 5 games, he's got to collect a certain number of points.
Matargets akabva kunani apa benefit
I know from the
executive, right.
After 10 games, I'm sure it's Veronica
It's still
was
the
who
story,
wrote the story. Yeah. After 10 games, he's supposed to collect a certain number of unreviewed points again. Yeah. Then after that, I think they will have to review the situation from our understanding. So I think Benjani, to a certain extent, is under a lot of pressure. You don't then just sit and say, well, I was brought in here. I mean, he has got to deliver.
Yeah.
But when you go back to his Ngezi stint, I don't think he was given enough time to really prove himself. So for me to say, to gauge Benjani according to his performance at Ngezi Platinum and say he's this kind of player, I'll be lying. I think you will need time. The good part or the advantage of Benjani, he has played at different levels, very high levels, to be precise. He knows what is expected of players. But I think I always thought what he needed in terms of him being a successful coach is to have my assistant coaches that are amazing. That you when you look at I'm not taking away anything from the coaches that I'm going to list. Tondera Indiraya always has hanama yes men dressing room market. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Hanama yes men dressing room market. With the Tondera Indiraya agara materials assistant wake mchekela wano gara ifamba naye akasara achitaura bora nongotaurwa. That's what you need as a top coach.
Does Benji have that?
Mention but there are a lot of coaches that also no men mapeza to a certain extent. Anima coach another no understand the bora around him. Can also understand the bora one. So Benjani needed to surround himself with Vanvanuta or a bora.
So how I just told you. I think Vanam Kokeli Dube is one of the assistant coaches, former Highlanders player, youth international, Agambenda States.
Played at the highest level.
But issue ndeye kunzwanana ere or issue ndeye kutaura bora. I'll take you back to Dynamos again. 2011, after Callisto Pasua took over, his assistant coach was Tondera Indiraya. Herbert Marua was always seated materials Majnurama notes, and there was also Staragira Ragunditiza. My assistants Pasua 2012 anga asingaiti. Peter Orabora. That's what good coaches are made of. They should surround themselves with people vanota orabora. Look at Pep Guardiola. That he has produced ana Ateta. I mean, Ateta would Arsenal, I know very soon. It's okay. I know. But I'm saying big coaches, one could surround and very good coaches, very good assistant coaches. And that is the story of Benjani, and that's my words.
But I would like to believe also Mugo everything is a starting point. Here Benjani, even Pasua that you are alluding to, when he came to Dynamos, Pepe Achi succeeded Mutasa. He'd always been an assistant, but he seized the opportunity. I got to the Dynamos to 4 titles. Ian Dirawacho also started as an assistant. I got space Raji, our coach. So let's give Mkokele Dube also a chance to maybe show us what he can bring to the table. Satam Jaja, let's see what they produce.
But
Benjani Arkunida Muno Anomuta say. I'm not saying anything about him. Okay.
So which means Mugoruta
Benjani was judged from the Ngezi stint. So I passed cinema time for my experiments.
Okay, so
if it was me indeed Benjani pandaka pinda pega, they don't go to Genesis Mangomba Satatumba point of Dynamos out assistant coach.
But anyway,
example.
Example.
ukati pane 5 pane 10 saka Highlanders ndokupinza apa manje kuti right he had 12 games vadzengwa kungezi. What do you think would be a fair amount of time for us to judge or kuti executive izomujudge tofanira kumira magame mangani kuti tizoti aiwa zviri kushanda? How much patience should Highlanders fans, Highlanders executive have with Benjamin? 15 games tombosvika pa halfway season kana topedza season tozomutonga.
I think it depends kuti executive yacho sometimes you have to look back at it previous season kuti Highlanders they finished 14th last season, they had 39 points, a massive 30 behind Scotland yangayona league. Mutangire papa, this is where we were last season. So you can't expect kuti this season Highlanders wetonze ato top 3 kana top 4. You'd expect kuti maybe vano improve auchi points tally ne position. That is where you derive your targets now a coach. Kuna utakana ngoti pa 5 games una points akati, but now I would think maybe after 10 games they will sit down, they review the start of the season, but with an ultimate target maybe they should not fight relegation. I think for starters, Highlanders should not fight relegation this season. Because if you go back to 2025, they were 30 points behind Scotland, which means upon a gap between them and my top teams. Rodato Kavga. Given their signings, new coach, everything, I think giving Benjamin hefty targets is unfair.
But we obviously focused a lot on Dynamos and Highlanders because Vachatamba was same Sunday, Mujairo's Giri Cup. But one of the things that we wanted to do on this episode was look at our traditional giants. Dynamos, Caps, ne Highlanders. Tambota, especially about the big two. I think it's fair to say those are the big two. Three Tarquins are Caps United. We understand Caps United, I think, yesterday or today left for Malawi.
Yeah, early morning.
What's
we are hearing that Vato across Tete. On their way to Malawi. I think about an hour ago. I went to cross Zambezi River Tete.
Uchitarisa Muguga, Chitarisa Caps United. Nyaya dzatataura rights about the issues zeku Highlanders ne Dynamos. 3-4 seasons ago, those are nyaya dzeku Caps. I remember takatomboa seka tichiti old people's home taitoziva kuti first 3-4 weeks wainzwa maplayer strikes isusu kwaona makutozomborowo I have to bring this back kutomborowo 6-2 nemanika Diamonds zvinoka zvino. But if you look at their preparations, I think out of the big three, they look on paper or from the information that we have to have been the best prepared. I think tisatotombopinda muna 2026 December chaiyo Tekshua Angato announced as a coach. He had his assistants, he's brought in, I think wasaina vanhu 11, and they've kept some of the key players. Ana Tanaka Shandirwa, Richard Hachiro is also in there. Like they've got a very good squad on paper. Waenda ku Malawi. Do you think, is it fair to say, all right, we're talking about of the big three, these are the biggest chance of being competitive, especially against the money bags? One a big go for that.
Cape Sierra Simba.
Yeah, one big. But it's not now Cape Sika. There's an Ngokutsa maybe what the fans are saying.
That's the But
Anonzi Tom Mangwiro anzi kutaura bora for an assistant coach is not enough. What is important is for the coaches to have an understanding on what they want. Assistant coach akataurisa bora racho, not the liking of the coach. The dressing room will be destroyed. That's Tom Mangwiro. Marutanzi Dynamos Ibiza Ombe. Yeah, so they are keeping on coming. Maybe Panama platforms there are other comments. So you were talking about Caps United. I think Caps United 2026 are going to be a different side altogether. There are a number of factors. There is the Chiragui factor. Chiragui is very short. He's a small guy. I think I'm going to say so, but munumuombe. Kanta kutaura nyaya sebora. And unokwanisa kumuteerera but paCaps apa anenge ari ma1. They won't be fighting relegation. The last time I was talking to him, I asked him, the class of 2004 and 2005, remember he was a part of it. Painana and Lafta Chilembe, ana Leonard Tsipa, ana Ashley
Ivana
Rambanepasi, you know.
And the
Pamba and players that had actually come from the juniors, especially na Leonard Tsipa, na Ashley Rambanepasi, wakatotambira reserve Caps and also Pindam Caps, Pindam Caps, they were just something else. Wango in the spirit Caps, including Chirago wachona. And that was a very strong team. It wasn't surprising they won back-to-back 2004 and 2005. And I said, compare it to this team that you have assembled. He said it's difficult to compare my teams from different periods. But he said this is a very strong team that will need the spirit of 2004. That was his key words.
What was the spirit of 2004?
2004, because I still remember when you get into that team, and Ashley Rambanepasi, when he was
Compressor.
I'll give Ashley a compressor. Angarugo if you die one. Ashley Rambanepasi was a very skillful player. Aiti akakufesa iso apana isvika padhuze naye. But 2004 paakazenga Caps United, yanga iri so talented Caps United to the extent that he was converted to a player with rough munanungo maka. And when I saw him, I was surprised. That was how talented the 2004 team was. And the spirit here, I think you can talk to David Sengu. He will give you more about it.
Yeah, I think
some of the players.
I think I'm in agreement with Amugo kuti he keeps iri powerful at this time. Yeah, because ukatarisa wewe kuti vatora pa goalkeeper pana Wallace Magalane, very experienced keeper, won 4 league titles with FC Platinum. Then defense inakudza ichigwida, one of the most underrated defenders akabva ungezi. Vachina Bruno Kadamanja. They also have Nyasha Gurende, a rising defender. Then look at the midfield. In a midfield, just imagine midfield in Achiro, Shandirwa, Nakunda Ebenyu. And this foreign player Kauyanza Chawananga Kaonga. Up front, Muna Obreo Chirinda. Talent Chamboko also coming from the left side. Saka, I think he keeps of the big three, no in a pedigree, wants to challenge Amambinga clubs.
But pedigree, right? Because I hate to be this person, but it's easy to say to separate them from Dynamos and Highlanders. Because in terms of Mazita, hakuna zviriko ku Dynamos and Highlanders at this point. Pamwacha gadzira Mazita, maybe as time goes after a month, halfway through the season, guys, Dynamos, ku Highlanders. But Chitasa now, Mugo was spoke very glowingly about the side of 2004, and he talked about telling him, hey, quality. Uchicompare manje, tisikatasi 2004, takutarisa nezvatinoziva about Scotland. Tirikutarisa nezvatakaona zvichiitwa on paper neHard Rock. Stability yanga ine Moors. Business that Simba Bora has done. Ngezi Platinum, FC Platinum. How competitive is this Caps United side based on personnel nature? But obviously, but
and I'm looking on paper. I'm looking at the CVs. The players that are Caps, and most of them. And I spoke about Wallace Magalane. He is a championship winner already. I spoke about Achiro, championship winner with Ngezi, Obro Chirinda. Shandi was still a title, but he played the Dynamos. He also did well Caps last season. Saga, pound for pound, Caps will be throwing my heavy punches. Obro Chirinda is a proven goal scorer. A hustler. Obro Chirinda. They also have Delek Murimba, also coming in from Gaze. Saga, I think in terms of Kunganza's story, Kunganza, my players, one, Caps that they've done well. Chango Saramanje Guti, Vachita jail. Because remember, Caps United yautanga Ngezi Platinum Light. Kuti ma players akabva ku Ngezi but also pana players angagara ari ku Caps kudara. Saka coaches to manage the dressing room well. But ma players akanga aripo kudara akafila unge coach ari ma players ake ndo ari kuda pangoita ka discord mu dressing room ndozvona ku affect, but coach akamanage akuita jail, especially about these 2 weeks vari ku Malawi. Caps will be a team to beat.
But I think that's actually an advantage to a certain extent on Chiragwi's side, because if results don't come his way, you feud at least 7 or 8 of his former players, tsvaga vamwe 3 urova vanhu achifanira kutsvaga masolutions because maplayers unokwanisa kuvaunganidza vanotonzi vanogona chichichi, but it takes time for players to actually understand each other and actually gel and start to deliver my results. Yes, Chiragui has to manage the situation kuti ndakabva newo kungezi what but pane vamwe vada kutamba but kana zvaoma unotongomboisa mabhiza ako. And I think we've seen that with a lot of coaches.
It's just the big three, Dynamos, Caps, Highlanders. Panama coach SA, whether it's Benjani, whether it's Genesis Mangombe or Tikshwa Chiragui. Chiragui is the only one who has proved his title-winning capabilities, having led against Platinum Stars to the title now 2023. How much of an advantage do you think that's going to be for Chiragui now coming to the capital? Because obviously, ukuiwina nengezi hakuna masupporter akawanda say the ones that he'll have ku Caps United. And Uchitasa over the years, Caps United fans, I always say this, they're very fickle fans. Caps kana chiwina ka green to da.
Nemakabeji anotowedzera makabeji anenge achiuya
even kana regalia vanhu vanotenga vatika moro 2-3 games chetenga
yeah, teacher, I think you are raising a very pertinent point zveshuwa kuti Chiragui kuri kungezi Mondoro yes akawina ke but kune less pressure zveshuwa muCaps zveshuwa murufaro mu 2-3 games uchidrawa pressure inona wait and see kuti anohandla sei pressure yeCaps versus pressure yanga inayo kupi kungezi Platinum. Yeah, I think it will be a different cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I think Mango Genesis will actually be going into this season in a better position than Texture because of that issue that you raised, because Mangombe was actually at Dynamos before. He knows exactly my expectations. It's really about trying to manage the situation. You don't go for 2 consecutive matches Uchiroa. Yeah, with
So,
these teams, they say, I think we can confine it to Caps.
There's the big three who are trying to focus on by game changers, Nasi, Highlanders, Dynamos, Caps. Kunova pressure static from my fans, the coup. The whole team are trying to hey, our fans, it's bad here, Highlander, he came in the other coach are under pressure from the fans more than any other coach ever. Based on dresses at
obviously chibaba chema fans in Dynamos and Dynamos of course the mythical 7 million. I was talking to Chawonza, the chairman, last week. I was actually bragging to know takatopfura pa 7 million tato 10 million ma supporters and I thought mama teams angakuya nemari dzawo but isusu ma numbers atotemba nawo, which means Dynamos ndokune most pressure given kuti masiso akawanda ma-supporters akawanda. I think Dynamos, then Highlanders, then Caps United in that order.
I think Highlanders by my supporter, because my supporter Highlanders win or lose, noise.
I think the beauty about Highlanders supporters, most of the time, they support the team from the first whistle right up to the end, just supporting their team. But Dynamos in 20 minutes wasangoridzirwa muridzo.
Yeah.
Caps United maybe after half time wombo waburisa player yavo iri kusuka vanhu. Caps United kuti makabeji anotosumudzwa. Saka pakaipa.
Saka tuti right. So we've now been down to Dynamos Caps.
Yeah, I'm saying
Islanders ma football fans machokwadi they rally their team right up to the end.
Let me rephrase my statement. Probably Highlanders are the best supported team in Zimbabwe, but Dynamos are the most supported team in Zimbabwe. When I'm saying the best, it's like what Mugo is saying. My loyal fans, from first whistle to final whistle, in good and bad times. That's Highlanders fans for you.
Okay.
Where Dynamos vakangowanda but zvikangodhakwa vanombotsvaka kutiza vozombodzoka but the Highlanders vanosapota team yavo chaizvo.
So I mean, looking at the different personalities, takotara zvemaveji, tikabotara zvemuridzo, tikatara zvoti from minute 1 to 90, which team has an advantage now in terms of potentially producing results. Would you say it's possible because they know as much as kuna pressure, my fans are mira now from start to finish, or is it dimbalo toziva kuti guys ngatitotame because muridzo ikatanga panapa ma1 ko mfesu ane mavheji
there should be a connection first because unazvida Dynamos unoda kungotamba murufaro maybe 3 games yobva yawina 3 games and murufaro hamuchatopindike murufaro because yaconnecta mai nemafans and once yaconnecta nemafans yakunetsa kudya.
So that's very
important. Formula actually.
So
and the advantage as well for Mangombe this time around is that whatever he does, chekuti zvene vari in the top 6, he's overachieving compared to last season. So ma support antoti zviri worse izvi last season taingorohwa na mablanyo taingorohwa. So it's unlike the people that took over after Pasua. It was always going to be very difficult because we were taking over from a team isingarohwe 3 consecutive. Yekutoti karohwa 1-2 zvinotoshamisa. Manje Dynamos yarohwa kana meno 4.
Yeah, from that perspective, Joshua, given the performance of Dynamos in recent season, pressure yakudzikira because my expectations out achita low foot. Because Dynamos actually remember
if they manage actually to get into the top 4, the fans, the normal fans will not even call for Mangombe's head. Look at where they are coming from.
I think the bar is very low because they were fighting relegation. But having watched my to the Dynamo supporter, knowing my Dynamo supporters, so I was talking about what win my game in 3 chete. So pressure atodzoka wakutoda title awachatozofungizve brutara zvekuti last season title relegation zvose zvinokakanikwa izvozvo.
So kakawanda kachona manje when situations are like that, the coach for him kuti abvise pressure paari ari kuda a certain Denver Mukamba in that team, not exactly Denver Mukamba but a certain Denver Mukamba. I still remember when pandakaenda kuma-flats kumbaroko some other time, those were years ago, ndobva ndasvika pane chimwe chiground pachitambwa bhora, ndobva tatanga kuidzira nharo neboys ranga riri papo nchiti but mbari muno ndiyani anonyatsogona bhora, ndobva ndambomeshena mamwe matims ekudynamos ukadzi unonyeba iwe hakuna havagone vese munhu anogona bhora muno mbare ndimadhanhanga. Handina kuiwina that debate. Vaingoti madhanhanga ndienda sei anogona bhora. It was the same futi this former Dynamos player who then went ku FC Platinum Ainzan angatori nemasupporters akaitoya kurufaro kuzosupporta iye. So you need to know kuti zvoni madynamos vanhu vanonzwanogona bhora mumageto ndoti nesariri mbare chete vanonzi vanogona bhora mumageto mundanani ukaona vavaisaya vari 11 ka as a coach unokwanisa kumbobvisa pressure kwauri because kuhighfields kwaimwe zikanonzi Denver ndienda sei anogona bhora nyange ukada kuti kama ukati musoro unonzi aiwa Denver ndiye anogona bhora. Saka you need to put those players vanobvisa pressure kwauri.
Yeah, but all being said, I think our Premier Soccer League is crying out for the return these big 3 teams. Because if you go back in the history of Premiership, 93 chitanga nditi Highlanders ndoka una league title nditi 94 95 it was Dynamos, 96 it was Cape United, 97 it was Dynamos, then 99 because league yambadanizwa papa 99 2002 Highlanders, then vakamboya Mazulu vakadzoka futi Capes Highlanders. So you find kuti zvoni anga mateam aita there were times when power dominated my teams and they would fight for the championship vari 2 kana 3 same race, but as gone are the days. It has been long uchiona Dynamos and Highlanders fight for title in the same season. It's been long, either dziri kufight relegation or one iri kutopi mwiri pasi kutoenza season zvoni dziri 3 to Capes Dynamos Highlanders dziri mumrace. I think tikadzokera ikoko bhora rinonakidza.
So dzokera this season
this season adzokere definitely no.
Aiwa atidzokere because you've got to look at the situation with Scotland. Obviously they will be more they've strengthened, they've gone a gear up. Varuto prepare for Champions League, they're not even preparing just for the PSO. Saka atori ma levels atori totally different. I don't know about Simba Bora kuti inenge yakamira sei, but then when you also look at the way Chicken Inn are building under Ndiraya, Ndiraya has won the league for the past 2 years. I don't think he will just give it on a silver platter. And knowing him, pakaipa kulivhevha kubudike.
Even my signings are one feel one chicken in my foreign players much chicken now.
I mean, because we still have Innocent Kurira on a standby. Innocent, give us an update. The boys chicken in. Obviously, Indiraya winning the last 2 titles with Simba Bora and Scotland. Give us the latest on Chicken Inn and what they are doing in the build up to the season.
Honestly, I feel Chicken Inn are one of the sides that people must look out for. I think the move by the sponsors maybe to give Tondera Indiraya a blank check to acquire whom he wants to bring into the squad. He has allowed Chicken Inn to improve from the quality that they had last season. Remember, this is one of the sides that also struggled and was also part of the relegation mix. But I think the move by the sponsors maybe to give Tondera Indiraya a blank check to sign whoever he wants to bring into the side, it makes them a competitive side. If you look at it, just this week they have signed a striker from Cameroon. They've also brought in a right back from DRC Congo. I think that shows the intent that they have this season and their desire to improve from the disastrous season that they had last season. Also, not forgetting the experience, obviously, that Tondera Indiraya has and the experience that he has brought in as well with the likes of Vasily Kawe and Timon Vula. So I think Chicken Inn are one of those sides that we must look out for as they quietly build their team for this season.
2015 champions, that is Chicken Inn. Because this is not because tasabota chicken in
Tataura Scotland chicken in and
Panemos.
Panemos.
but
We were looking
Mama
at
Mama games.
Sakati name point a big 3 zamuktaura. That was 7 guys.
Even you can't rule out an Angezi Platinum Stars. FC Platinum, Simba Bora, to Scotland, to that Moors, on paper. Talking of pins, I had Rocky Mom, talk 6. Into that, top 6 is not going to Ramba for big 3.
FC Platinum.
Just a tutor.
FC Platinum.
So,
Yangezi Platinum, I can rule them out. FC Platinum.
FC Platinum.
It's very easy for people to just think Joel Pasha has been lucky. I'm to Bora. I'm telling you, I'm to Bora. Till one pack a promoter the first time, Papa. Even Yana Berry.
Golden Eagles.
It wasn't just sheer like Andro Bora Joe. Commander Woods, no was auto
as much as we might, because one of the major themes we were trying to unpack is competitiveness, a big 3. Obviously, Tatanga Chitara, Jairo, Jiri Cup. Pachao, I don't watch a question. Kept study of the 3, the winning in a chance because of the squad. But what gave the big 3, how disruptive can they be to this new status quo at Rugona? Can they? History, if things go for them, ideally, hypothetically speaking, Kips wins first 3 games of the season. Dynamos first 3 games of the season. Highlanders.
Murwazi, I'm
Can that inspire them to go on a run and be competitive, or I think
Dynamos, let's start with Dynamos. Dynamos, obviously, they are driven more by their support base. Pampacho, it's not about the playing personnel. Chazunguza spirit chikangobata. Vamwe toenda for a long unbeaten run. Regardless kuti varutamba ndanani, inenge yaitwa ngespirit yeDynamos yakutamba. Saka iyoyo kangowabatawo vanogona kungodisruptawo, but panozoda consistency in terms of off the field administration. But I'm thinking kuti the new executive yapo yana Vincent Chaonza, na Divine Sena, na Desmond Vute. I've spoken to some of the guys. They look promising. Vanenge vane plans. Dynamos kangwasa ngoti ma players arongotambira winning bonus. Vakawina ubva winning bonus yavo. Salary chiuya. Chaunga chakazara mustadium. Izvozvo chete zvinoona kuti Dynamos ivhiringidze ma-teams amafungi. Boso yagara ndongobenga after on Soweto end on ma-supporters avana ground. Because vakreata eningi fierce atmosphere mubaba fields. Obviously they will not be pushovers. But in terms of playing personnel pound for pound, vanenge vasina hama players. vangoshandisa bhonzo right vanenge vangoshandisa bhonzo nekuti tisu Dynamos tisu Highlanders but muground chaima players vanenge vakadyiwa pound for pound.
Okay. Anyway, Game Changers podcast, we're about to wrap up this week's edition, but I'm going to try to chair. I don't want to try to innocent. Because every week, and obviously this week the big news coming out of Scotland, not only was he named the Motherwell Player of the Month for January, but he was also named the Scottish Premier League Player of the Month. I mean, I was just not surprised, guys. I was just not surprised. Tungomuti Mafana Makorogoto.
And it was big news kuti ana ugoesa. Both dzakajera ugoesa. Both do news kuti ana ugoesa. Both ajera ugoesa.
I think he has done very well, and it was actually good on his part that he stayed at Motherwell. I don't think moving January transfer window was going to be a good decision for him. He has got to continue to develop. And if there is to be a move, personally, I will not be disappointed if he joins a top championship side. Because one of the things that actually kills my players is to jump my stages. Now the hype around Maswanise is so huge that chances of him kufuma chingonzi kana kuti he has joined Brighton and Hove, kana kuti he has joined
Brentford.
Kana kuti Manchester. They're very big because of the hype surrounding him. I think he needs to do zvakaita Jordan Zemura. Move away kana kuenda ku Udinese zvakaita Jordan Zemura, a mid-table team in the Syria, and Jordan Zemura he plays, he gets game time, and he's developing very well. He can actually go to a team where you end up sitting on the bench after this hype. That's the fear, and it will be to the Warriors' disadvantage, unfortunately.
What does he need to do now? Obviously 13 goals in the league ku Scotland. It is the top to the golden. I mean, is that too much pressure on him, or you think it has to happen now in terms of the trajectory that he's on?
Obviously, given Mastetsa agadzira, the focus is now on him. Even our scouts machines how to say kuna tawanda Maswanise kuMotherwell amuna akututariswa. So I think he just has to. I think if he hits 20 plus goals this season, definitely Musama yawe ku Europe anogona move to another team. So he just has to maintain his form, get 20 plus goals. I think another position for a lucrative move.
Anyway, Game Changers, every week we've changed our time slot. We'll now be going live every Friday at 2 p.m. across all the Zim Papers social media platforms. So don't worry about where to find us. We can go check anything today. Zim Papers mkati na 2 p.m. to down to 3 p.m. I'm not bata mugo tichi penengura tichipedza chirongwa chedu. Tukupedza nemaprediction eJairos Jiraba kuti zvinopera sei
kuti ndikakupawo zvekutaura nemasapoti Andrew Charles charumbira hanzi dhimba rebhora this season tikupedza you shall see paSunday apa ndobva baba skilled vati to be honest pama big 3 only Caps United ndiyo iri serious ende ndiyo ingatokwikwidza. Then Cloud Nyarwendo, these big teams teams just need money. League yedu ainene kuti last season makapedza muri papi Dimbare nebhoso pakaita mari they can end in top 4. Then Tom Mangwiro again, Anzi Islanders need fixing. They are so obsessed with foreign coaches who have walked away rich, but the team remaining stagnant. Benjani might be what they need. If they give him support, they may progress from that big team in a name, but with little so to show on the ground. So many of my feedbacks from our different Zim Papers platforms, the Herald, ZTN, and so forth. Yeah, we need to know more. We need to hear what they have to say.
Next week, penengure nyaya dzipi Game Changers tikori miromo chete tinongoyosasa badzi but chivhara ngatingoroedu paJairos Jiri pamusi weSunday Dynamos Highlanders. I know it's difficult because I don't know anything about the teams, but based on chaunga, all right.
ndobvumiswa kuti BTS pakaipa mangombe akaviga zvake bhora but pakaipa I think Islanders will draw.
It's okay.
1-1.
Yeah, I think tambutaura zvehistory yeBet of Zimbabwe obviously hapana basa kuti Jairus Jiri kana kuti pre-season tournament rinenge rakaoma game iri mune makazara, so I'm thinking it will go all the way kusvika mapenalties.
Vanhu vari kukwata kuda kutaura kuti ndepi chawina, but huya mumacomments ngatitaurei. Let us know who you think is going to win the Jairus Jiri Cup on Sunday. Dynamos are taking on Highlanders. That will be at Baba Foods. Big thank you to Mugowe Chigada, Langton Anyakwenda, Mr. Tich. This week tapedza vanonga vari kubf tinoona ikoko, but vamwese tosangana futi same time next week paGame Changers podcast.
Sure.